there are very small things that you can do to make education just substantially better for kids across America. And I should say that these are not issues that apply to everyone. Like Teach for America particularly targets schools and communities in underprivileged neighborhoods to kind of try to uplift them, right? So some people don't have these issues, right? If you went to a school where your class size was somewhere between 10 to 15 and you had all the textbooks you need and all the supplies you need, and like already you are at a far better place than the communities that I worked in and that several other people work in, right? Because it's well established in academia that just by providing students with reasonable class sizes, that means 10 to 20 kids in a classroom instead of 30 to 35, you improve outcomes substantially, right? By making sure that they have the textbooks they need and the tools that they need to answer their questions and so on. It makes things a lot better. Money doesn't solve everything, right? Again, but it can make things a lot better. Those are kind of the issues at the forefront of my mind. I was an elementary school teacher, right? And so really, as I saw it, right, my duty, I was a first grade particularly, my duty was less about like teaching really groundbreaking topics. I mean, I taught like basic math. I taught really introductory science. Some little social studies here and there, and a good amount of reading. But again, these are just like the initial footsteps, right? What I'm really doing is providing discipline, structure, social integration to kids who are experiencing it for like the first times in their life. And again, that all is made much easier when you have the resources you need to do it right. When you're a kid in a small class, in a classroom packed with 30 other kids of all different backgrounds and so on, it can get really overwhelming, and you start kind of tagging on to what the dominant behaviors are, right? So it becomes very challenging for the teacher to establish order in the class when there's so much kind of different tensions going on. And it becomes difficult for the kid to feel at ease and at peace if the hair's teacher is on fire, right? If the teacher's hair is on fire. So those are the number one issues. There's a long list of issues I could go through, but those are, I think, certainly some of the first things that addressing would be very good to do.
Yeah, because one thing that I feel that I've seen from my experiences is that the schools that tend to be more well-funded, the teachers have less stress, they have a smaller class size, those end up producing better students in the long run, or better. It makes complete sense that would be, the input, that input creates that output.
Improving education is almost like, it's kind of scary how simple it is, right? Like you provide a kid with a proper a proper home environment, like outcomes are like already much higher, right? You provide them with a proper class size, much higher. You provide them with the proper resources to be able to answer their questions, do their homework, and keep up with the materials much better, right? This is before we've done anything about how do I make sure that my kid is memorizing how multiplication works or how division works. This is before we get into any of the actual subject matter. But just by doing the basics, right, in terms of improving environment, improving structure, and providing discipline, outcomes already go much higher. So in that case, it's kind of simple.
It sounds a lot simpler than, it probably is simpler. It's just, it seems that no one is putting the focus on the actual, listening to what the teachers are saying, because even...
Well, no one wants to spend the money.
No one wants to spend the money.
We'd rather send the money instead to foreign countries who may or may not have our best interests in mind.
If you look at the European model, for example, it's the teachers are seen at the same professional level as a doctor or an engineer or lawyer or whatever other professional career. And it seems that teaching here is just seen as, if you're making 40, 50K as a teacher, that's what you deserve. Oh, you have summer vacation. But what people don't realize is that a lot of the teachers, they work through the summer in order to increase their pay. They have to pay for their supplies, and then the job continuously gets more and more stressful as the class sizes increase. And I even tell this to a lot of people that I would love to be a teacher if the money was right. Obviously, at 50, 60K being the sole provider in a household, it's not attainable. So I feel more people would approach the teaching profession if we just valued it more in America, which we don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, so on the list of issues I think that could be improved in the education system, I actually have teacher salaries pretty low.
Really?
I don't really know. So there's two components. First, there is definitely a huge difference between a bad teacher and a good teacher. I agree that a good teacher is so much better and so much more of an impact on the kids than a bad one, obviously. But there's just so much that needs it more than the teachers, I guess. Like, again, I would much rather that the money be spent to recruit an additional teacher that's going to reduce the class size from 30 to 20 than you get me the smartest, sharpest teacher to replace, me, the guy who came out of college and just has like a good, hopeful heart to make a difference. I think that whoever you put in that environment is going to struggle, and the fact that she may know the ins and outs, yeah, she'll manage better than me, but she'll still struggle. Right?
Of course.
And I think that you could certainly raise salaries, and I think you can see salaries vary across the country, but there's also kind of a limit on what you can do, right? Like, okay, if we say that the starting salary, let's say in Houston, is 55 or 50K, and it moves up to like 70 or 80, right? Okay, what are we trying to move that up to? If you add 5 on both sides of that scale, that's nice. It's not really changing the game for anyone. If you add 10, maybe. If you start adding like 20 or 30, again, like that money's not, I hate to say that there's like a zero sum, but I think that money's coming from somewhere, right? And so the education system needs so much. I'm always happy to take additional money for teacher salaries, but that has to be not at the expense of the areas that need it more in the education system.
I guess that makes sense, that it would be great to pay the teachers more, but that's not going to fix the underlying issue. So we should, of course, pay the teachers more, but there's a lot of other problems with the education system: class size, proper funding from the state. And in Texas, which is a good example to use for this, is that and I don't know how accurate this is just my understanding of it, maybe you can correct me. The districts, the school districts, they are funded based on property taxes. Mm-hmm. And because of that, the richer, more affluent neighborhoods, they'll be able to fund their schools a lot better than poorer neighborhoods that, because they aren't able to fund it as well, this leads into poor administration and children not being provided the resources that they need to succeed. So it almost is, because of the way that schools are funded, it's a recipe for disaster for poor folks, and it's a recipe for success for the rich ones.
Rich get richer.